I've spent over 40 years working in the field of adult and geriatric psychology. Through countless stories and quiet sessions behind closed doors, one truth remains clear to me: love never grows old. But the way we love, trust, and commit, that changes profoundly with age. I've seen many patients walk into my office with hands trembling, holding a new marriage certificate. Their eyes sparkled as they spoke of someone they'd met at a dance class, a book club, or even next door. And yet, behind the smiles, I would gently ask a question that not everyone was ready to face. Have you truly thought this through? Remarrying after 60 is not the same as getting married at 30. It's not about building a home, raising children, or launching careers anymore. It's about merging long-established habits, navigating complex family ties, and confronting questions that our younger selves never had to answer. What happens to your estate? Will your children be accepting? And do you still have the patience to love someone with their own history and fierce independence? That's why I always remind those standing at the threshold of "I do" again. There are at least 5 essential truths you need to understand before remarrying later in life. Not to discourage you, but to prepare you, so that when you say yes again, it brings not confusion or regret, but peace and genuine joy. Let's walk through these truths together, just as if we were sitting across from each other having a quiet, unhurried conversation. One where you don't need to be perfect, just honest with yourself. Truth: one's financial realities change after 60. In my years of practice, I've seen more than one heart broken, not by love, but by what wasn't discussed beforehand. When you marry later in life, love and companionship may be your main reasons, but finances quietly sit in the background, waiting to become the real source of tension if not properly addressed. Many people are surprised to learn just how much remarriage can reshape their financial lives. It's not just about my money and your money anymore. It's about how 2 financial legacies collide. Retirement savings, Social Security benefits, pensions, and even your plans for inheritance can all shift the moment you say, "I do." For instance, if you're receiving Social Security benefits based on a former spouse's work history, those benefits may be reduced or even lost once you remarry. That can come as a shock, especially if you've come to rely on that monthly income for your basic needs. Then there's estate planning. Maybe you've carefully arranged for your children or grandchildren to inherit certain assets, but with a new marriage, your new spouse may automatically have legal claims to what you own, regardless of your original wishes. I've known people who had to completely revisit their wills, their trusts, and their retirement plans simply because the law didn't match their heart's intentions. Let me tell you about Robert, a 72-year-old widower who found love again and remarried. He assumed his children would still inherit his estate just as planned, but after marriage he learned his new wife now had legal rights to much of what he owned. This wasn't about mistrust, it was about understanding how the system works and protecting those you love. If you're even thinking about remarriage, talk to a financial advisor or estate planner before you make that commitment. It's not about being unromantic, it's about being responsible. Because peace of mind is one of the greatest gifts you can give to yourself and your family. Truth 2. Family dynamics can get complicated. Love between 2 people may feel simple, but families rarely are. When you remarry later in life, you're not just bringing 2 individuals together. You're blending histories, expectations, and deeply rooted emotional patterns. Often decades in the making, and no matter how deeply in love you are, it's important to understand your new relationship will ripple outward, affecting the people who've known and loved you for years. I counseled many older couples who were stunned when their adult children didn't react with joy to news of a second marriage. It's not always about disapproval. Sometimes it's about loyalty to a deceased parent. Sometimes it's fear that their inheritance will change, that family traditions will be disrupted, or that the relationship with you will shift in ways they can't yet define. Even grandchildren, especially if you've been a stable, central figure in their lives, may need time and reassurance. Introducing a new spouse can feel to them like a chapter is being rewritten without their input. Then there's the new spouse's family. They too may carry their own concerns, boundaries, or expectations. And when those worlds collide, the most dangerous assumption you can make is that love will figure it all out. Let me tell you about Susan. She was 68 when she remarried after being single for over a decade. She adored her new husband and was excited to start this new chapter. But almost immediately she found herself having hard conversations about where she would live, how holidays would be shared, and whether the family vacation home would remain in the family. Her children weren't angry, they were just confused and perhaps a bit afraid. She realized quickly that love wasn't the only thing that needed nurturing. Her family did too. The key always is open and honest communication. Before the wedding, not after. Talk to your children. Acknowledge their emotions. Explain your choices clearly and listen to their concerns. Not to defend, but to understand. Remind them that love, when it's real, doesn't replace anyone. It expands the heart's ability to hold more. The conversations might be uncomfortable, but they are also the groundwork for peace, and peace in a family is more precious than gold. Truth. Emotional expectations are different at this stage in life. When you were younger, marriage often meant building a life from scratch, raising children, paying off a mortgage, making it through late nights and early mornings together. You were two people growing into one shared future. But after 60, the picture shifts entirely. You're no longer building a life, you're sharing one you've already built. That means you come into this new relationship with your own rhythms. How you spend your mornings, what brings you peace, the way you wind down at night. Maybe you have your favorite chair by the window, your morning newspaper, your standing calls with your grandchildren. These little patterns may seem small, but they're sacred. And blending them with someone else's isn't always as effortless as love stories make it sound. Both of you have had entire lives before meeting each other. Maybe you were widowed like many of my patients. Maybe you experienced divorce and had to rediscover yourself. Either way, your hearts carry memories, some joyful, some painful, all deeply ingrained. It's important to recognize that remarriage at this stage is not just about love. It's about learning how to love again, with gentleness, with patience, and with respect for one another's independence. Take Harold, for example. At 75, he found love again after losing his wife of 40 years. But when he married a woman who had been on her own for many years, he was surprised by how different the relationship felt. She valued her independence, she didn't need to be cared for, she wanted to be understood. And Harold, who had spent decades in a different kind of partnership, had to relearn what it meant to share space without needing to take control. They struggled at first, not because of a lack of love, but because of unspoken expectations, when to be close, when to give space, how to resolve differences without comparing the new to the old. This stage of life calls for a different kind of emotional maturity, one that asks, can I honor my own needs while respecting yours? It's not about losing yourself in the other. It's about meeting as two whole people, walking beside each other, not merging into one. So before you remarry, ask yourself, what kind of companionship do I want? Am I emotionally available for a new bond, not just for the joy, but for the challenges too? Am I open to growing in new ways, even now? If the answer is yes, then love at this age can be one of the most beautiful, liberating experiences of your life. Truth 4. Legal considerations matter more than you think. When we speak of marriage, we often talk about love, companionship, and emotional connection. But one thing I've learned in my decades of counseling older adults is this: the law does not operate on sentiment. Marriage, at any age, is not just an emotional bond. It's a legal contract. And after 60, that contract carries implications you may never have had to think about when you were younger. I've seen it happen more times than I can count. Two people fall in love later in life. They remarry without thinking twice, and months or even years later, they find themselves entangled in legal issues they didn't see coming, wills that no longer apply, inheritances contested, medical decisions challenged, and most heartbreakingly, loved ones caught in the crossfire. One of the most common blind spots is estate planning. In many jurisdictions, when you remarry, your new spouse is automatically entitled to a portion of your estate, even if your will says otherwise. That means assets you intended to leave to your children or grandchildren could be legally redirected simply because the paperwork wasn't updated. Then there are healthcare decisions. Should something happen to you, illness, a sudden accident, who will make medical choices on your behalf? In the absence of legal documents, your spouse typically has the final say, even if your children have always been your closest advocates. If there's any tension between your new spouse and your family, this can create painful and preventable conflict. And yes, prenuptial agreements, though many shy away from them, fearing they're unromantic, can be a loving, mature way to protect what matters most. Not because you don't trust your partner, but because you do trust yourself to make wise, informed decisions for the people you care about. I remember Eleanor, a 67-year-old client who came to me excited to remarry, but deeply anxious about her assets. She had spent a lifetime building security for her children. After a few honest conversations, she and her partner agreed to draft a clear, respectful prenuptial agreement. The result? Peace of mind. Not just for her, but for her entire family. None of this means love must become transactional. It means that love at this age benefits from clarity. Because the truth is, nothing builds trust like honesty, and nothing preserves peace like preparation. So before you say, "I do" again, take the time to speak with an estate attorney. Discuss medical directives. Review your will. Put in writing what your heart already knows. And protect the legacy you've worked so hard to build. When we're young, happiness often feels like a finish line, something we'll reach once we've built the perfect life, the house, the career, the family, the plans, laid out like stepping stones. But after 60, happiness transforms into something more intimate and grounded. It softens and deepens. It becomes less about chasing achievements and more about cherishing what already brings meaning to your days. By this stage, you've likely tasted both deep joy and profound sorrow. You've known love, and you've likely known loss. You've come to understand the quiet value of peace, of waking without anxiety, of enjoying a meal alone without feeling lonely, of watching the world move gently past your window without needing to rush into it. That's why, before you step into marriage again, I invite you to ask not only whether you love this person, but whether the life you're building together reflects the kind of happiness you now seek. Many believe that remarriage will ease the ache of solitude, but if you aren't already at peace with yourself, another person cannot fill that gap. In fact, the reality of daily companionship may add unexpected complications if your emotional foundation isn't steady. For some, true happiness now means quiet companionship, without needing to share every corner of life. For others, it means keeping separate homes while remaining deeply committed. And for some, it means choosing not to marry at all, but to walk beside someone in a way that honors both freedom and affection. I think often of Frank, a 72-year-old who remarried a vibrant, outgoing woman whose zest for life brought him joy, but also discomfort. While she longed to travel and entertain, he cherished his quiet routine and the neighborhood walks that grounded him. Though they cared for one another, their lifestyles clashed, and Frank found himself slowly grieving the simplicity he had once taken for granted. Not because either of them was wrong, but because they had not stopped to ask, what does happiness mean to me now? That, in the end, is the most important question. Because marriage at this stage is not about fulfilling expectations or recreating what once was. It is about preserving the well-being you've earned, nourishing your spirit in the way only you know how, and honoring the full, beautiful person you've become. As we come to the close of this reflection, I want to speak to you not as a clinician, but as someone who has witnessed the quiet bravery it takes to begin again in life's later chapters. Remarrying after 60 is not a failure of the past. It is a testament to the human heart's enduring desire for connection, even after loss, even after disappointment. But as with all things of depth and meaning, it requires more than affection. It requires clarity, patience, and a deep reverence for what you've already lived. Love at this stage is no longer about building empires or chasing milestones. It's about creating harmony, preserving dignity, and ensuring that peace is not sacrificed in the name of companionship. My hope is that by reflecting on these 5 truths, financial realities, family dynamics, emotional expectations, legal considerations, and the evolving shape of happiness, you feel better prepared to choose not just love, but the kind of love that fits who you are now. And if you do decide to say "I do" again, may it be with eyes wide open, a heart steady with wisdom, and a soul that understands. This chapter is yours to write. Not to repeat the past, but to honor the journey that has led you here. If you've stayed with me until now, I want to thank you. Not just for listening, but for allowing yourself the space to reflect. You see, remarriage after 60 is not about starting over. It's about beginning again differently, with more wisdom, more courage, and, if you're willing, more clarity than ever before. I've learned through the years that there is no right answer, no perfect formula for happiness in later life. Some find it in a new partner, some find it in solitude, and others discover it in the quiet, steadfast love they give to themselves after decades of giving to everyone else. What matters most is that the path you choose feels true to your values, your needs, and the life you've carefully built. Before you say yes again, take time to say yes to your own peace of mind, your legacy, and your emotional well-being. So whatever you decide, whether you choose to remarry, to remain independent, or to explore love in your own way, may it come not from fear of loneliness, but from a deep settled knowing that you are worthy of love that nourishes, not disrupts. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey today. And if this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments, because your story, just like your heart, still has so much wisdom left to give. Until next time, take gentle care of yourself. You've come a long way, and you deserve a love that honors every step of it.